Hi everybody, this is Jolly and welcome back to my channel. And I am here with another artist book flip through. And since we're working backwards, I actually, this is the first one I created last year. So this is the first ever artist book I made. And I just want you to see here. And so this one actually began with the vessel it's in, which is just an envelope. So this began its life as just a very basic craft envelope. And when I actually started this project, I had no intention of actually making an artist book. I had seen a tutorial by Amity Bloom here on YouTube on how to alter envelopes using washi tape. And so basically, I was just like, that seems like a cool, easy process. And I just started doing it without an end in mind. And so I took that craft envelope and I just started, since it was craft already, I went with sort of my vintagey black and white and brown washi tapes and just layered them all over the envelope. So these with photos on them. These are Jack Robbie's washi tapes, which are gorgeous. And then these here are a couple of Tim Holtz washi tapes. And then I think I also have, so this one is with Frida Kahlo is a Megan Quinlan washi tape as well. So I've got a few different brands, but I love how they all kind of work together. And so I just covered the envelope with the washi tapes, inked up the edges, and love how that turned out. And then once I had the idea of putting a small book inside this envelope, I decided to theme this with sort of the maps and the photos of pictures around home and also just an envelope. So I'm imagining kind of a letter home inside an envelope. And so to decorate it, this is a real vintage stamp with, and I chose one that was marked with Washington, D.C., because that's where I live. And there's some coffee dyed cheesecloth behind it. And then this these are some paper flowers that I make quite often based on an Anne Kenlin tutorial that I saw a couple years ago. And I always do really bright, colorful ones. And so I tried instead to make sort of a neutral one to go with this. So we've got some vintage music paper, pages from a vintage book, and then this is actually these I got from Patty Lang at Sacramento's. There, it was a big stack of actually doctor's notes. So, but gorgeous handwriting in like this brown, and then I splattered it with gold ink, and I used a vintage brown button, and then I layered that over. This is a doily that I also coffee dyed, a vintage doily that I got from Kate at Inked Paper Art. So I used that to uh, just decorate the front as well. And then if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know I'm a big quote nerd. I love quotes. So I had to use one of my favorite quotes about home, which is perhaps home is not a place, but simply an irrevocable condition. And that's a James Baldwin quote. I just stamped that out using little typewriter stamps that I have onto old book page to keep again with this sort of vintagey brown sepia tone. And then in the corner here, I ended up putting an eyelet, and then this is a key. So this was sort of a regular brass key. I got a huge mason jar of them from Patty Lang at Sacramento's, and I've been having a lot of fun. So rusting these in a peroxide, vinegar, and salt solution. And these in particular get this amazing patina um, that I feel like I'm always trying to achieve with paint, and I got them naturally. So just hung that from here with the little bulb pin again around the idea of home. And so then this opens up, and um, I've got here a little magnet. So this stays closed with a magnet because The book itself is a little bit chunky for this envelope. I had to do a little surgery um, just to get it to fit in the envelope, but it did, and it fits nicely. And then this is the actual book. So again, as I said, the theme is home. So I thought it'd be neat to do a book in the shape of a house. So this is the cover, and it has another quote. And so, one of the main themes and inspirations for this, since it's a book about home and houses, is all of this backing is scraps of vintage wallpaper that I get from Jubilee Flea. Yeah, I just love this. Looks kind of almost like shiplap, and then the roof, but this is all vintage wallpaper. And then again, stamped out another quote. This one's from W.H. Auden: home, the center where the three or four things that happen to a man do happen. And then this, I just made a little window using a square punch. And then this is again, this is a piece of this washi from Jack Ravi that I put on a piece of white cardstock and put in, and then I put glossy accents on it to look like a window, and have I love the look of this sort of eye peeking out from the window. And then this is a I believe a cattle tag or a cow tag, but it's a metal tag that I put on with a brad. And I chose this one. I got this again also from Patty Lang at Sacramento's. And I was really happy to get this one because 845 is the area code from where I grew up. So we have the stamp, which represents Washington, D.C., where I've lived since 2007. And then the 845, which represents uh, home, where I grew up. So I thought that was a very neat little personal nod. And so the structure of this book, this is a actually an accordion book. So I just made a bunch of these using a craft cardstock pages, and then I put them together sort of accordion style with more of the vintage washi tape. So that's how this is held together and how this book is bound. So for the first spread, again, more of this vintage wallpaper. And then I love this idea. This is sort of, I took sort of the busted canvas type look and applied it to wallpaper instead. So I love this, just a stamp of an eye over old book page. And then this quote is: there's a ghost in this house, but I've learned that the house is me and the ghost is also me. And so I just loved having this eye. It sort of matches the front and back cover as well, with sort of the eye filling a space. So I love that one. And then again, so if you've seen any of my previous ones, you know I'm very quote driven, as I said. So again, I tried to theme these quotes and these spreads to one another so that they're cohesive. Um, and then this one, so the quote is: he slept that night thinking of love and lighthouses, that one love might shine to bring all loves home. And that's a Jamie O'Neill quote. And so, again, this is a vintage wallpaper. I happen to have one in my collection that was sort of under the sea themed. And then I used a Tim Holtz paper doll here and a stamp. So, if you saw my Full Deck Challenge 3 walkthrough, you'll know I did this for one of the turquoise. I made this little mermaid. And again, this is more vintage wallpaper. I used some stamps very faintly in the background, and then just did some white splatter and some gold splatter here. And so I loved how kind of cohesive and underwater lighthouses home this one was. This spread turned out. And then this one, this is again, this is a technique that I used during the full deck challenge, but I basically took very small squares that I punched out of different, in this case, this is actually, I believe, origami paper and then old book page. And I made this sort of like quilt, and I sort of rumpled it up and turned it into a blanket, another Tim Holtz paper doll, and then again, more vintage wallpaper in the background. And the quote on this one is: she was made for untidy rooms and rumpled beds. And then next spread, this one I love. It's obviously very heavy, but I love the way it themed together. So this wallpaper sample is very distinctive. So it's this red with these eagles and this gold all over it and stars. And for a long time, I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to use that, but it worked out perfectly for this since it ended up being kind of patriotic or like war themed. So the quote is, "Don't tell me about the war. Tell me about your brother's empty bedroom," which I love that quote. I feel like it carries so much in a very small bit. It's both sort of great writing advice. It's sort of show don't tell in a very small nutshell, but also just very powerful and thought provoking. And so to decorate this, I made an origami star out of this handmade Japanese paper that I get from Bitter Melon Bindery. And then I made these little cabochons that are, uh, so it's basically a jump ring put over, in this case, is a book page. And then I stamped little hearts with VersaFine Clair and then filled them with glossy accents and then cut them out and they became those little cabochons. And so then this again, more vintage wallpaper, gold splatter, and then a Tim Holt paper doll here as well. And so I just think this is really effective and affecting. And I love how this spread turned out. And then this one, again, more origami. I made origami paper and then I used the little legs from the little Tim Holtz paper dolls. And the quote is, "Not every haunting is a horror. Sometimes it's just for company." And so I thought that was very cute. And then the back cover, again, very similar technique with the washi tape made into a window. And I love this quote, "This is why we make art, to help us remember more beautifully, not more clearly." And that's by Jeffrey Craner and Janina Matthewson. And again, used very similar technique to do almost like the siding on the house and the roof, all in vintage wallpaper. And so, yeah, that's sort of the book. Very kind of simple, but I was very happy. Again, this is my first time ever doing something like this, ever doing an accordion style type book like this. So, and I think it turned out really nicely. And then, yeah, and then this just folds back up, fits nicely into this, if snugly, into this envelope. And then, again, you have the magnet here that holds everything together, which felt like a shout out to Belle at Bella Blue Creations, who uses a lot of magnets in her work. That's where I sort of learned about this technique. And yeah, and then it all folds up in this cute little envelope. So that's it. That's another artist book flip through. I think that's all the artist books I did last year. So after this, we'll move on to some different things. I have actually my first ever decor piece, which I'm probably going to film next. And I'm excited to share that with you. That also uses actually vintage tin types. So that should be coming soon. And yeah, thank you so much for taking a look and have a great day. Bye.